What's on the big gay agenda today, Theora?
Today is book club. Woo!
Woo! I always forget to celebrate.
In today's episode, we will be discussing The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School by Sonora Reyes. If you haven't read this book and don't want to be spoiled, that's okay. In the beginning of the episode, we will be giving our spoiler-free review. So feel free to stick around for that portion, and if you're intrigued, go grab a copy and read it. Then come back. Because afterwards, we will be spoiling the book and giving... Well, don't worry, we'll give the spoiler warning when we get there.
Is it just me or did she say crappie?
Yes. Who knows what I said?
It's been a long day. Been a long day coming. Yes. So we have a shout out to do for this episode because we were not in charge of picking this book club. We picked which month it was in, but we actually got an anonymous email asking us to cover this book. And through my detective skills, their name is Charlie.
Ooh, thank you, Charlie.
Charlie
is
S.
dedicated to you.
Yes, thank you so much for giving us this recommendation. It was a great book, and sometimes we may not choose books that you want us to cover that we really need to read. So it's always great to get recommendations.
Yeah. So if you have a recommendation, let us know. Leave it in a comment. Email us anonymously. Whatever you want to do.
Don't be anonymous though. Just sign your name. Charlie and I emailed back and forth a little bit. Anyway, we've read our big gay book club book the month before the episode releases. Nope, we read. Okay, so there's the thing. There's the word read multiple times here, but it's pronounced differently, and that's why English is stupid.
English is really fucking stupid.
Okay, that's why I paused. I was like, which read is it? And I didn't read the full sentence, and I should have. Okay, anyway, we read our Big Gay Book Club book the month before the episode releases and discuss it in our Discord channel while we read. Yes. For example, we read this book during the month of March. Join our Discord to participate in future book clubs. We'll even include your discussion points when we film the episode and totally give you the credit because you deserve all of it. Also, join the Discord to connect with other queers and just have fun and talk about all the queerness. We can just talk about being queer in general.
Just in general. And there's a lot of people in there who just love books. So, if you just want to talk about books, period, that's probably our most active channel. People talking about books. So yeah, let us know. And because we're always looking for more recs to read outside of the podcast. So come join us.
Yeah. And if you're watching this podcast, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Give this video a like. Leave a comment below. And if you're just listening, make sure to try and leave a review on that podcast platform. Download the episode or share. Do all the things because that helps us spread the joy of queer content. And apart from our episodes, go check out our merch on biggayenergypod.com. My camera is going up.
What are you doing with your hands?
No, I don't know. I'm being Theora, okay? I'm trying to remember. I'm trying not to read the scripted part, Theora. Shh, I was in the zone.
I'm sorry.
Okay, go to our Patreon, where you can get full reaction videos, exclusive content, and be in charge of what we cover next. There's so much going on in Patreon, and you need to go check it out, because any reaction videos that we do will be full length over there. If you have a book club and you want to get us immediately, it can be pushed up in our book club. That's a new perk that I just thought of right now.
That's the power of Patreon.
With Patreon, you have all the power.
All of it, literally.
Okay. Nope.
Skip that part.
Yep. Lastly, stay connected with us on all social media platforms by following @BigGayEnergyPod. And just share us and like us. I'm going to read the last sentence so we can get on with it. Your interactions mean the world to us, and these actions contribute to our ongoing celebration of queer media and advocacy for better representation.
Woo! Yes.
I will work on that later.
Yes. But bottom line, come join us for virtual book club in Discord. It's pretty chill. Like, we read it and talk about it a month before we film. We announce it on social media on the first of the month in Discord and on social media, like what the book is going to be. So you have time to get a copy and check it out. But really, like, you can read at your own pace and jump in there at any time. We have a thread dedicated to the book, so you can just jump in at any time and like give your thoughts if, like, you know, that month is not good for you or whatever. But we like hearing about what other people think about books because, you know, that gives a greater discussion of the queer media, and that is why we are here. So,
with that just shows you how much better Theora is at speaking.
I wrote that intro very roughly, and poor Kaitlynn read it as my brain spit that stuff out. So thank you, Kaitlynn. Yay! Speaking of good queer representation and good queer media, let's jump into our book club book this month, which was The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. So, synopsis of the book. Kaitlynn, would you like to tell the good people at home what this was about in a non-spoilery way?
I hope it's not spoilery.
I hope
because this is what was on Google.
Oh dear. You always go to my Google.
Well, yeah, I'm not creative.
That's not true. What did Google say?
Google says that this book is about 16-year-old Yami Flores, I'm sure I'm saying that very Americanly, prefers to be known for her killer eyeliner, not for being one of the only Mexican kids at her new, mostly white, very rich Catholic school. But at least here, no one knows she's gay, and Yami intends to keep it that way. After being outed by her crush and ex-best friend before transferring to Slayton Catholic, Yami has new priorities. Keep her brother out of trouble, make her mom proud, and most importantly, don't fall in love. Granted, she's never been great at any of those things, but that's a problem for future Yami. The thing is, it's hard to fake being straight when Bo, the only openly queer girl at school, is so annoyingly perfect, and smart, and talented, and cute. So cute. Either way, Yami isn't going to make the same mistake again. If word got back to her mom, she could face a lot worse than rejection. So she'll have to start asking, WWSGD, what would a straight girl do?
This sounds like the author wrote it. It's very much in their voice.
I'm pretty sure it's the back of the book. It's just the back of the book.
There we go.
I got it from somewhere, but it was from Google.
Okay. So that is what the back of the book / Google says the book is about.
See, I'm good at reading stuff that's scripted.
You know, that is why we write outlines, so that we have things to say. Okay, now, host of the podcast, in 3 words, explain what your review of the book, or how you describe the book. For me, my spoiler for your review is repression hurts everyone.
I was trying to say representation. That would not be the good one. Repression is bad.
Repression, not representation.
Representation loves everybody.
Elevates everyone.
There, that's the word. All right, so mine is strength from within.
And then mine took a bit of a personal note, vicariously healing, and then in parentheses, my childhood. I felt like this was super, like I followed along, aside from going to Catholic school, I did not, but I did grow up Catholic. So like the book followed along my like high school path, I guess. So
healing your inner child.
Yeah.
Oh, I did go to Catholic school. What a wild time.
Whew. Okay, so now that we've reviewed it, last thing we're going to do is give our rating for how much big gay energy did this book have. So,
and this is the last time we're doing this part because it flips now after.
It does.
Anyway.
It does. So I'm printing it here. So I would say this book has so much big gay energy that there isn't room for lesbian Jesus, because you got to leave room. You ever heard that the Catholic thing, leave room for Jesus? There isn't room for lesbian Jesus. It's so gay.
This book has so much big gay energy that it makes you feel seen.
Cool. I can't compete with any of those. I don't have, like, I agree so much with there's so much there isn't room for lesbian Jesus. I think that just encapsulates maybe the whole thing. I think that's perfect.
I got it. There's
That's
so
pretty
much big gay energy that lesbian Jesus raised in 3 minutes and not 3 days.
Hydrate for that.
I forgot my water.
I don't have water either.
Oh my god, you guys are the worst. Okay, anyway. Now, I'm just kidding. All right, everyone. So that was our spoiler-free review of the book. If you're intrigued, pause this, go read it, and then come back. Now we're going to dive into all the spoilers of the things that we liked and want to talk about from this book. So the first thing I want to talk about is basically the opening of the book and this theme that I noticed throughout. So I don't know if my webcam. Anyway, something I really enjoyed about the book is it was clearly very well written. Like Sonora clearly is a very good writer, like so good that I am not of the age demographic that this book is written for. And usually like I struggle reading YA now because it's just, I don't relate to it. I'm not of the demographic. I'm older in my life now. But the way it was written very like witty, cleverly, like a good command of just like figurative language, not just like literal language. So like for me, it was mentally engaging despite being about like a person in high school. Because I struggle with that media a lot. I just was like, I don't care about this. But okay, something that really grasped me on like the very first page was the shattered mirror, which is used as a metaphor throughout the book, really. And I just love the way it opens with this really powerful imagery. Because like without even reading this, I didn't read the synopsis. I just jumped into the book. And just by having this, I knew what the book was going to be about. Like just by having this. Because I was like, oh, we're using imagery. All right, let's go. So usually in media, a mirror is used to represent like a character's like inner self, like the self that they hide from the world. So it started with Yami, who's the point of view character, and a shattered mirror. So to me, that told me that the main character, Yami, is fracturing their personality, because that's usually what that means. And there's a loss of control of this person over their life. And Yami says something in her inner monologue about this, where she says, I like this new reflection better, like talking about her reflection in the shattered mirror. It's cracked enough that I'm hardly recognizable, splintered in all the right places. I did that. And so to me, that set the tone for like what this book was going to be about. It's about Yami being on this journey of self-discovery and reflection, and she's in a place where she feels like she's losing control of who she is and perhaps going through some kind of metamorphosis. On page 25, she also says something where she says, in her monologue, there's something unsettling about seeing your whole reflection looking back at you. And I love that because, like, yeah, there's something weird about, like, seeing yourself, like, fully and, like, confronting who you are in all of that sense. And for Yami, that's not just external. It's very much an internal, like, coming of who am I kind of, like, process. And that can be really, really hard to do, like, in a very in a wholly truthful way, especially for somebody so young. So, like, again, I like that, like, the way the author used this like imagery of a mirror and like reflections shattered and whole to kind of show like how Yami feels about herself. And I just thought that was really powerful. And I love that. And it keeps, the mirrors keep coming throughout the book. And after the third act of the book, the author comes back to this whole mirror image with after Cesar was hospitalized, Yami's brother. It's on page 317, where Yami says, I think internally, I want to take punching the mirror back the first time, just so I can do it now. And then in italicized, it says, you should have been there. Because like she's, at this point, is like really guilty over the fact that she wasn't there for her brother. She was wrapped up in herself and didn't fully see what was going on with him.
But also because her mom kept saying you should have been there, which was wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. But anyway, to me, this was like a moment of major reflection for Yami, like in the third act, where she's bringing back the whole shattering of the mirror thing, because she's thinking back on her choices, how she's wrapped up in her own head, her own trauma, so much that like she missed all the signs of like what was going on with Cesar, like because he clearly wasn't okay from like the beginning of the book. Like if you go back and read it, you're like, yeah, all the signs are kind of there, but Yami's still like wrapped up in Yami and confronting her inner self that she doesn't see like what's going on in front of her. And so I love that in this major moment of like spiraling that she has, that she thinks of smashing the mirror all over again, because she's like, it's like, wow, like I was trying to like go on this journey for like 2/3 of the book to figure out who I am and figure out my shit and what was it all for. Like, you know, it was very powerful, and I love the way this book was written in summary.
I want to go back quickly to when you said that she smashed the mirror to feel in control. And I think part of it is that she needs to feel control because she can't control who she's attracted to. And I mean, in her situation, she doesn't want to be gay, obviously. Like, this isn't something you choose. You have to choose to be okay with it. But there's so much in her life that is unknown, and she can't control people's reactions to it. She can't control the people she's around either. And I feel very connected with her in the fact that you just want something to be because of you.
Yeah, for sure. And like, that's why like it really struck me, like the shattered mirror right in the beginning, because I'm like, here's a child who feels out of control with their life. Like, that was the intriguing point for me. Like, well, why does this child feel out of control? And yeah, like you said, Kaitlynn, it's all these external factors that are at odds with who she's starting to come to terms with, like who she is. And so it was very powerful imagery, and really just tells you what the book is about. And I just loved it a lot.
I also have a comment about her brother. I clocked it right away in that conversation when he said that to something about, we might have the quote later, but that life's not, what if there is no tomorrow, or something like that. You could tell right away. And I thought it was going to be even darker. Luckily, he's still with us, and I'm really glad that ended like that. We bury no gays in this book.
Yeah. Gays were harmed, but not ended in the making of this book.
Yeah, I don't know where this fits, but speaking of harmed, those people like driving the truck off the road to try and pretend to run them over. What the hell?
Oh my god, that was so fucked.
I'm like,
those are children also.
Yeah, but
doing that.
It's so messed up.
It was
How
disgusting.
does anyone raised to think that that's okay?
I'm sure they were good Christians at heart or some shit. There's no love like Christian hate, right? That's the saying.
I have not heard that saying, but I'm sure it is one.
I was also raised Catholic, so it's okay. Got some religious drama. Yeah, that was absolutely disgusting for a number of reasons. For the racism of it all that was there. Yeah. And I mentioned this off screen to Kaitlynn, but like the intersectionality of this book is the other thing that I really like about it. The fact that they are Mexican American and they have that experience, and that was very prominent in the book. And I think I have a section on that later, but
there's a lot of representation that matters
exactly
in this book.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned in the synopsis about Yami and her best friend, now ex-best friend, that's like the catalyst for the beginning of her kind of spiraling. So what is your take on Bianca and Yami's relationship?
Bianca's a bitch. But I really wanted more from the storyline overall. I had high hopes, but I think it's better the way it happened. So I'm actually very proud of Yami because she fully did not let Bianca back in her life. There was a couple times where she tried, like Bianca tried to come back into Yami's life, and the way she did it was so backhanded. So, I mean, everyone here probably should have read the book if you're listening to this, but in case you didn't, basically Bianca got so weird and started hating Yami when Yami actually told her that she was gay. And so now they no longer speak. And she's like the typical Catholic, oh, that's wrong. You should be with a man. That mentality. And from the very beginning, I was like, well, she's closeted, right? So we're going to get this like whole thing where she's like, oh, really, I just had feelings for you too, and I didn't know how to reciprocate them. We did not. I believe that relationship ends with Yami being like, no, bye, bitch. You're out of my life. Not literally, but in the sense. Even though I think she's closeted and that was like the catalyst for this, it still doesn't mean that Yami has to let her back in. Because I feel like, especially with stories like that, it's always on the other person to make them feel like it's okay and accept them. But Yami is taking control back by being able to to choose who is in her life. And I'm just very proud of Yami for like the ending, because Bianca isn't the only person who's no longer in her life, but we will get into that in a little bit. Bianca also made Yami feel small, like she wasn't even a person, and that is a terrible quality in a friend. On page 73, it says, "It all makes sense now," she said. This is what Bianca is saying. Oh no, I'm sorry, it is not. This is an internal monologue. So Yami is thinking, "It all makes sense now," she said. "She told me it creeped her out, that if only she had known, she would have avoided all of it. All of me, as if she wouldn't have cried on my shoulder when her parents got divorced, or let me cry on hers when my dad got deported. As if none of it mattered because I'm gay." And I think this is everybody's worst fear when they're queer and they're afraid to tell their best friend, because they're like, I don't want her to be weirded out by the friendly things we've done. And the way Bianca reacted made her feel so unsafe that even seeing her at work, she quits. And her flight response was so real in that moment, and I feel like it's relatable, because if someone makes you feel that scared and uncomfortable, obviously you don't want to be there. And so much that she quit a job that she needed because she needed to pay her tuition.
I would like to piggyback off of something you said, Kaitlynn, because I also was reading Bianca. I don't know. I read their relationship differently. I definitely read Bianca as closeted and projecting all of her internalized homophobia onto Yami, sorry. Because there's a scene where Yami comes to Bianca's house and is talking to her, like after all of the fuckery happened. And Yami notes that, oh, Bianca's still wearing the friendship bracelet. So, like, to me, it showed that, like, Bianca's not over Yami in a way. She's still, like, holding on to her. And it's not until, like, Bianca looks back to, like, the other people in the house that she starts, like, performing and doing the, like, homophobic stuff. So, to me, it seems like she's one of those people who's closeted and is going to stay closeted because like you said, part of this is part of being queer is learning to accept your queerness. And like, to me, she strikes me as the character that's not going to accept it, that is too burdened by like societal expectations and like how other people want her to behave, and she's afraid and is just a coward that's not going to ever like win that battle. So to me, that's kind of like how I was reading Bianca. So like, when Bianca was like reaching out to Yami again later, like it felt like I don't know, maybe she was trying to heal herself somehow, but like to your point, like Yami owes her nothing. So like we didn't get that storyline where they were like, oh, they figure their shit out together. Like Yami's just like, no, let's cut out the toxicity and move on. And that's totally fine. So like I didn't fully read Bianca as like a bitch per se. It was just like this was somebody who is in the same situation and is responding to it in a completely different way that like does happen, unfortunately. Like, and the way Yami handled herself like was totally within her rights to do that. And yeah, it's not like the storyline I was expecting what you were expecting. So like it was refreshing to read the story that went in a different direction in terms of like their friendship, and really their relationship wasn't the focus. It was the catalyst for really Yami's journey that she goes on. Like it's the shattering of the mirror, and like it forces Yami to really reflect and then figure out who she is, because like a lot of the book is Yami like trying to hide who she is, but then ultimately comes to accept it by like seeing other people who live their truth and like figuring her stuff out. So yeah, I think a lot of Bianca was just projection. Like, so.
This is very reminiscent of Ben and Charlie.
Yes. Oh my
And
God. Yeah,
Heartstopper.
this is Ben from Heartstopper. 100%. Yeah. This is a closet case that was going to stay in the closet. Like, yeah, absolutely. That's why I was like, I don't think she's a bitch. I think this is just all projection, and this is a scared child.
Yeah, but just like handle things in like kind of a bitchy way.
I mean, people do this though. Like, I'm not saying it's good or bad. Like, it's not great, but like, I get why she's doing it. Like, I can see the character's point of view, because like that was my take on the character. Like, it's a scared child.
At the very least, she is following others' opinions without forming any of her own.
Correct. Or she just feels like that's safer, and because like the way she like says all those things to Yami, where she was like, well, like now I'm grossed out with all of our memories and stuff. That sounds like other people's thoughts getting into her head, and she's just like performing the way other people want her to perform, because like I don't know, that's what I feel like she's brainwashed and is just going because it's safe and it's easier to hide rather than to like be out and proud kind of thing, which is, so Yami's the stronger character, really. It's just that she's like a foil in a way to be like, that could have been you if you stayed closeted, basically, and had to perform as a closeted person with like a lot of internalized homophobia and self-hatred. Yeah, so it's gonna be a shitty life for her. So
yeah, I don't see things getting until she can be confident on her own.
If ever.
Get better for
some
her.
People don't. Some people never get there though, and like that's the tragedy of it. That was like Ben in Heartstopper. Like Ben will never get there, and neither will Bianca. I don't think so.
That's really sad.
Yeah.
Well, now you really just humanized her.
You're welcome. She's just a person.
Okay. So a friendship that I do like is Yami and Bo. Bo is so cool. Okay, we first meet Bo, and I believe they're talking about abortion and debating it in class, because that's what they chose to debate on.
Yeah. Well, they didn't choose. The teacher was like, let me pick a controversial topic. Yeah.
Really, it's the teacher's fault.
It is.
But basically, Bo was being a badass, and then it gave Yami a little confidence to say what was on her mind as well. And so, just the whole beginning, it was they were perfect for each other. Yami needed someone like Bo in her life to show her it's okay to be who you are. Because Bo was representation matters, in case we didn't say it already. By seeing Bo just fully being themselves out in public, like at the beginning, Yami would never. She's literally trying to hide herself, and one of my favorite things that she says in this school, hold on, let me get to the quote. This time I'll be stealthy gay, like Kristen Stewart. And it just made me laugh.
Kristen Stewart was not stealthy, let's be honest.
Let's be honest.
Let's be honest.
I did not know that Kristen Stewart was gay.
It's because you're bad at subtext.
Yes. Also, terrible gaydar. That's another story.
That's because you're bad at subtext.
That's okay.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. It's a work in progress. It's gotten better.
It has.
We're still not there.
Still working on it.
Anyway, so Bo's really cool. And one of my favorite things about Yami in this story is like such a fool, like blurting out, "I'm straight," when she gay panics. And she doesn't do it just once. She does it multiple times, and I love that this is like the same way she comes out to multiple people. Like, but I'm gay. Like, she just blurts it out. And in some ways, that's probably a better way to do it. Just get it out and over with.
Get it out. Rip the Band-Aid off.
But one of the things that in the whole storyline for them is that Yami gets drunk at a party. And she finally is not thinking. And she starts texting people and coming out. Do it on your own time. Don't drink alcohol, friends. If you need to drink alcohol, you are not ready. Salmon one.
I was just thinking of that. Hey, they were ready. They're just dumb. How did they not die, Caitlin? Anyway.
That's a Gap reference, by the way. Go check out those discussion episodes. I believe that discussion episode for 8? Number 8. Yeah. Yes. It would be 8. Anyway, so in her coming out tour, which she only texted
It was a tour. That was a good way to put it.
The drunk coming out tour. That would be a good
right?
Good tour name.
That's one era.
Taylor Swift. Next era. Drunk coming out.
And that would be amazing. It sold out immediately.
I mean, anyway, it'll be sold out.
Any era. Let's be real. Anyway, back to Yami.
Back to Yami's tour. So she texts her dad that she's gay, and I believe she tells him not to tell her mom but that's a whole nother side. With Bo, she calls Bo. Luckily or not so luckily, Bo does not answer. So Yami's leaving this long ass voicemail. And then basically telling her that she's gay and she likes her. I believe she says she likes her, right?
Probably. I don't remember the exact
words. I don't remember the exact words.
This is the gist of it.
But yeah. And so that's how she comes out to Bo. But for some reason, Bo doesn't get notifications about voicemails and did not listen to Yami's voicemail. But I really, really wish he heard it because it would have gotten us closer to the end sooner. Not that I wanted the book to end, I just wanted them together. It was a super slow burn.
It was.
But Yami also needed to figure herself out as well. Like, she needed to be comfortable in her own skin and in the mirror, if you would say, before.
Yeah. She needed to look at her full reflection and be okay with that. And, it just took her a long time. And that's, realistic. It does take a while. Especially in her environment. That's part of it. So, you brought up, with Bo and Yami, the beginning was, the debate, right? And so to, see somebody like Bo being so, unabashedly themselves in Catholic school, it's not just that Bo is being herself. It's, in the environment that, hates somebody like Bo, everything about her, the fact that she's queer, the fact that she's a leftist, a feminist, all the stuff that Catholic school is trying to suppress and get you not to be she's the antithesis of Catholic school, basically. So there's an insane amount of confidence and bravery that goes into Bo being who she is in the environment they're stuck in. So I think all of that is what really helps Yami the most, on her own personal journey of acceptance. It is really hard. But then she goes home and she has the threat of being at home with a possibly homophobic parent. And so she can't ever escape the external factors that are saying don't be yourself. Even though she sees somebody like Bo. So I think that's part of the slow burn with the relationship and Yami coming to an acceptance. It's external forces that Yami can't escape. And she's actively trying to. That's why she's trying to save up all this money. She's I need to get into a safe environment. I don't feel safe to even entertain being myself. Because if you look at Bo's environment, Bo goes home and Bo is in a loving environment. So Bo can do whatever the hell she wants at school because then she can escape to a safe place after that. Whereas Yami is not safe no matter what. So I think that's part of why it takes Yami much, much longer than Bo.
Yes, that is fair. Side note, I love Bo's parents, at least the dad.
They're cute. They try so hard.
Yeah, just very accepting, giving Yami the family that she needs in this time.
I have many things to say about Bose Family, but yes.
Yes, we'll get there.
So I, on the other hand, would not be surprised if Bo actually did listen to the voicemail. Because if I had gotten a voicemail and then somebody told me not to listen to it, boy, would I listen to it and then not just tell them I never did. Like,
and then you would act out later when Bo is trying to listen to it, and Yami's trying to grab the phone away from Bo, because that did happen later, and she like,
yeah, well, and I might
go along with that.
Yeah. Listen, I am too nosy to like. I've done that before. People tell me not to like. I have said I didn't read things when I absolutely did. Absolutely read them, and then said I didn't read them or listen to it or whatever, so that they could tell me at a different point. But I've absolutely done this exact thing before, so I would not be.
That would eat away at my conscience too much. Like, I'd be like, oh, I lied to them about this, and then that's all I would think about when I'm with them or thinking about them. So I could never do that.
Kaitlyn's pure at heart.
I try.
I just like knowing things. So
Not pure enough for Catholic school, though.
Sorry, that was good. Good one.
Well, I mean, in some cases I am. In others, not so much.
But yeah, that easily could have been the plot line. It didn't read like that from Bo's point of view.
No, I feel like
Bo
Bo wouldn't have like been trying to and then have Yami wrestle it out of
right. That seemed
hands.
like, to me, it read like Bo did not listen to that message.
Because if really Bo could have been like, if she did listen to it, be like, okay, fine, I won't listen to it. Knowing what's in it.
Right.
Like, maybe Yami's just not ready. But no, like, this one, she's like, why did you wrestle this out of my hand?
Right. I was like, that was a weird reaction you just had.
I would, yeah, if someone did that with you, I'd be like, what was in that message?
Right, exactly.
I don't know. That's just my interpretation. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Either way.
All right. So the moral of the story is, don't send Cole messages if you don't want Cole to read them. Cole's going to read them anyway.
Probably. Unless you can delete it before I can get there.
Kaitlynn, if there's anyone could do it, it's you. All right. I have no transition into this. So,
No.
Other theme that I liked in the book was, again, one of the aspects I really enjoyed was the intersectionality of the book. And so one of the themes that kept cropping up with both Yami and Bo was feeling disconnected from cultural roots. So I'm going to compare and contrast Yami and Bo for this, because I thought their perspectives on this was interesting, and their like life experiences in this aspect was really interesting. So with Yami, basically she's like a first generation, I think, American is kind of how you would categorize Yami. Like, her parents are Mexican immigrants, and then she's, you know, now an Mexican American, basically. So she's like the first generation to get the American label, I guess, put it that way. And so from her, the reason she got here to America is because her family willingly immigrated to seek a, quote, better life. So that's going to distinguish Bo's journey a little bit. In that journey, we get the father who comes up multiple times throughout this book, and he basically was deported back to, like, quote, the old country because of racism, basically. And he, like, the way from Yami's point of view, at least in the first like 2/3 of the book, her dad was like her biggest connection to her like Mexican/indigenous heritage. So because her father is gone, I mean, she still like FaceTimes him and stuff, but it's not the same thing as having your parent physically there, you know? So she feels this loss since her mom is, like, from her perspective, mom is too busy because mom is making money to keep everybody alive. It's not mom's fault. So mom is, quote, too busy to connect with their cultural like roots on like a regular basis. And so she feels this like heritage of hers that's like constantly slipping away because they're not practicing like their culture consistently, from Yami's point of view, kind of in the beginning. So, but despite like the like not having her dad there to constantly like bring culture into the house, Yami is really fortunate to live in a part of town that is ethnically homogenous. So the way we're shown that is through like Don Violetta, right? That the woman that keeps coming up. And the reason I think why that is in there is because it's showing that like Yami lives in a community of like other Mexican immigrants, basically. And so because she's in that like epicenter of her culture, like the cultural practices are still there and she is practicing them, she just doesn't realize she's doing it. So the fact that like when Don Violetta is like grieving the loss of her husband, the whole community keeps her going. Like there's constantly like little mentions of like this family brought over food or this family is watching over her. And that's a very cultural thing, like to watch out for other members of your like roots, basically. It's like a big family, right? And so like she is connected to her culture, but it's the culture that's now implanted in America. And like I relate to that because I'm Italian American. I grew up in an Italian American like homogenous area of New York where I used to live. So it's very much like that. It's like you're still in the culture, but you're in like the American version of the culture. So like which is going to be like very different when you go to Bo. So like really like Yami is still part of her culture. It's just a new version of that, basically. So if you contrast that with Bo was adopted, right? So Bo immigrated without her consent, basically, which like contrasts Yami, whose family willingly came here. So she's brought up in a culture like America. She's not connected with any of this. And so like her parents feel this guilt, like love them. I love this perspective from Bo. It was so fantastic where Bo's like, I feel like they're trying to like immerse me in my culture, but they don't know anything about it. So it's this very like disjointed way I'm being exposed that doesn't mean anything versus like Yami who lives like amongst her own people kind of in a way. And so is like so much in her own culture, she doesn't realize she's in it. So Bo does not live in an ethnically homogenous, I guess she kind of maybe does live in an ethnically homogenous area. She lives in the rich white people part of town, which is not ethnically homogenous. It's just skin tone homogenous. So it's like this hyper individualistic like society is what she lives in, where it's like my castle, my rules, fuck everybody else. Like that's basically the area that she lives in. So like people don't take care of each other, so you take care of the people in your own household. So just her parents is kind of all she has. So for Bo, it's really like really sad that like the only time that she ever feels like she can authentically connect with her own cultural roots is when she goes to Chinese restaurants. Because like that is a there her heritage is there in a like a very like authentic way by the people who own the restaurant and things like that. So like that's the only time she ever like feels connected and like learns about it, which is like Yami at one point makes fun of her for like knowing so much about fish, and then she's like, yeah, because I learned about all the fish at the restaurant and like I feel connected to China because of this. So one of the aspects I love about their friendship is that because Bo has no like epicenter for her heritage other than restaurants, basically, she lives vicariously through Yami and Yami's connection to her culture. Because Yami at one point takes her to like, oh god, I forget what it was, like a performance art thing that was like, I forget what it was called. I apologize.
It was some dance
thing. Performance thing, and it was like a very like Mexican, I think, not indigenous, it was a Mexican performance, and so it was just Yami being like seamlessly like fitting into her own culture and like showing Bo like this is what my culture is like, and Bo just had this like a beautiful experience of doing that and was like, wow, I really wish I could do that with like my Chinese like culture as well. But it's like harder because like, I mean, Bo, if you move out to San Francisco, you can find that out here. Because like there's ethnically homogenous areas, and there's a lot of like we do a lot of like Chinese culture things
you
here.
have all the nationality, you are
all
a
of them
world in one city.
Yeah, so like you can get that experience. But I love that like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that I felt so bad for Bo in that moment because she was so jealous of Yami, seeing how comfortable she is with her culture and connecting with it, and how like her parents were the only white people at that event. Yeah. And it just really showed her what she needed for herself to connect with her culture.
Yeah, that, and I love that this gives Bo the courage to tell her parents how she feels, because like that's awkward and weird, right? To like have that kind of conversation with your parents who are like, they're trying, but it's like, Bo's
The
like, you need to
wrong
stop.
trying.
She's like, you need to stop doing this. So yeah. Yeah. So it's basically like her sentiment is like she feels like she's in a household with Chinese artifacts that hold no personal connection to her. And so she's like, I get what you're trying to do, but like this actually isn't helping me. So I love that she like had that conversation with them. I thought that was really important. And I love that that was depicted in the book. So I like the contrast between the two when it came to their culture and how they felt connected and disconnected from it.
It's also really telling that Yami was able to figure that out just by seeing all the decorations in the house. Be like, is Bo okay with this?
Yeah.
Because it's a very superficial way to engage with your culture. Like, I feel like they could have done better with taking Bo to events, engaging with people who are from China and making sure that she understood where she came from rather than just having Chinese decorations in the house, because that doesn't teach you shit.
Yeah. And it goes to show you that like when you're ignorant of something, you can do harm. Because I mean, why would they know any of that? Like that was not her parents' experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
like they did, you see the goodness in them that they tried to begin with. It was just not the right approach.
Right. It wasn't what Bo actually needed. So like unfortunately, like they can't see that. So like it had to come from Bo to be like, this isn't what I need. So that as a child to say that to your adopted parents who like try to give you the world, that's hard to do. And again, Bo is somebody who is very courageous. So like she did get there, you know, but yeah, that was a big maturity moment. That was really great with Bo. I really liked it a lot.
And she also had Yami come with her in the beginning
Yeah.
to tell. So that also showed Yami that someone cares that much about her to have her be there for Bo. Like she was her rock in a way.
Yes.
So
yeah,
it was just that someone was appreciating her and needing her, where it was a give and take relationship where a lot of Yami's relationship with her family was like she was trying to take care of everybody. And I will talk more about that later because it's a huge thing. But I guess the word is symbiotic, I believe, the relationship between Yami and Bo. And they understood each other in a way that other people couldn't understand them.
Yeah, precisely. And I think them both being like women of color, like definitely had a lot to do with that for sure.
And them not being the same ethnicity, they were able to teach each other about their own. I mean, Bo still learned about her culture herself, but I think it's really cool and interesting that Bo wasn't Mexican, so they understood each other, but they could still learn together.
Yeah, no, I definitely love that so much. That's a really good point.
Was it the baile folklorico?
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. I found it. Yeah.
It was basically like a Mexican folk dance.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah. I couldn't remember if it was singing or just dancing, so that's why I didn't guess.
Yeah, it's a dance of Mexican pride. It's about the music, the colors, and the dance, according to the book.
Cool. All right. So one aspect of the book that I really liked too was there's a scene where I think it was Bo, was it? No, it was Yami. Where Yami basically is forced to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and it's on page 33. And I think in her inner monologue, she says, "I stand, but I don't say the words. It's the closest thing to protesting I can do without causing a scene." And in that moment, she recounts when her father was deported and how she stopped doing the pledge after that. Quote, "Liberty and justice for all never applied to people like us." So she like didn't really do the Pledge of Allegiance, even though if you're not from America, they force us to do this because we're authoritarian, even though they say we're not. So they literally force children to say the Pledge of Allegiance, which is so weird. So question for all of you. Did you ever stop doing quote protest the Pledge of Allegiance like Yami did?
So I want to say something about this. I 100% did. protest. Like I would stand up because I also didn't want to like cause a scene or like have people say stuff about it. But like in my own way, like I would just refuse to say God in the Pledge of Allegiance. Like I just would not do that. I would say some of the other stuff half the time. Other times I would just either, because I don't know, this was like, I don't know, middle school, I think, and I would just
it's been a while.
I would just like mouth, like you learn like watermelon is supposed to be like what looks like you're saying words, so I would say stuff like that, and or like mouth that, and I just so I 100% protested.
Did you, Kaitlynn?
I did not, mostly because all of it's just words to me. It's just words that you're saying. Like, it doesn't mean anything in my brain. In another episode, I talked about how I have a struggle with history because it just seems like stories and not like something that actually happened. Yeah, they're just words that I was forced to say. I don't think anything of them. It doesn't mean anything to me. But also, so I went to Catholic school. We had to say a prayer, and then we went into the Pledge of Allegiance. So in my brain, because I was doing that since preschool to 4th grade and some of 5th grade, they both get combined in my head. So I forget if it's Our Father. Yeah, it goes. So if you start Our Father, it will go into the Pledge of Allegiance for me as I say it. Because we said Our Father first, and then we said the Pledge of Allegiance. So,
did it like? Did you finish the one?
No,
or did it?
No.
It's
like
how far did you get? And then
so it's Our Father
who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name. You. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. One nation under God, indivisible. Yeah. So it goes from that
it just goes right into it. I love how you kept the God part in from the Pledge of Allegiance.
I think that's what combined them in my head,
in your brain.
But like as a child, I just grown up with thinking like that. So another one, and I just wanted to add that anecdote because also. Again, I'm a terrible Catholic kid because I always failed religion. That's the only test I ever failed was the first test of religion every single year.
Was it the same test?
No. Oh, okay. It was just until they had to start singing, then I understood more. Because I don't pay attention unless I get to sing, apparently. But also, I got really good at sitting there and doing nothing. Because I am also really good at watching TV in my head because that's how I got through church.
My favorite day for church, this is a tangent. My favorite day for church was Palm Sunday. And all I would do is take everybody's palm leaves that was in my family and just make those crosses. And that's all and then I would rip them into smaller and smaller pieces.
Yeah, I wanted to keep ripping them.
Mm-hmm, I had crosses that were like this big because it was just like I had broken one or something. And I was just, that's all I did. That was my favorite day because I actually got to do something.
It's probably sacrilegious to keep tearing them, but I went for the communion. I wanted my wine and bread. My little wafer that nobody liked, but the wafer was sweet to me. And the wine, I would take a huge gulp of it. There wouldn't be much left after me. Yeah, well, because they think that giving wine to 2nd graders is fine in America.
Oh, yeah, because that's after First Communion.
Depending on which religion you are, because some people do give grape juice.
Yeah, ours did not. It was
after
wine.
COVID, nothing at all. Anyway,
to circle back to the pledge, I also protested that because, like, when George W. Bush got elected, because I was like, wow, America is just elected a complete moron, and I can't with this place.
Oh my god!
I
forgot there's an age gap. I forgot. I was like, when was Bush president? You remember Bush? The first president I remember was Obama.
No, first president I remember getting elected was Bill Clinton. Because I was born with Ronald Reagan, the person who ruined America. And when I was born, he was president.
I don't know who
Anyway,
was president when I was born.
probably Bill Clinton.
Okay. Clinton.
Anyway, so yeah, I did the same thing. I just stood and wouldn't say that because they force you to stand, and then I just wouldn't say the words at all. I didn't even pretend. All right, next thing. So the next theme I really liked. Well, I didn't like. Well, it sucks, but a theme I noticed in the book was feeling seen in a bad way. So on page 29, I think this is Yami's inner monologue. This is when she first gets to Slayton, and she's kind of like looking around and basically says, "There's already a bunch of kids in the courtyard. So I'm playing the game in my head called, quote, spot the person of color. Total, there's a dozen kids out here. Oh, sorry. Total, there's like a dozen kids out of a couple hundred. I hate how visible that makes me feel." So yeah, it's like that's why I like the intersectionality of the book, because it's from the point of view of somebody who literally, like, quote, is an outsider in this school in more ways than one, not just being queer, but like is visibly an outsider because Yami is Mexican American. Yami already has darker skin, so like she's going to stick out, and people are going to notice her as an outsider just because of the color of her skin in this school that she's in, which is predominantly like rich white kids, with the exception of the dozen kids, like she's saying. So
that tracks for
yeah.
my experience in Catholic school as well.
Yeah, because I mean, Catholic schools in America are typically private schools, so you have to pay money to go to them. So who has the money? The rich white people have the money. So that is why Yami sticks out, and Yami is there because her brother got a full scholarship because he's a little brainiac, and then she has to, like, her and her mother have to pull together to pay so she can go too, which strains her family. But this being seen in a negative way is something that, like, I really not enjoyed, I think it's fucked up, but enjoyed seeing from, like, her point of view, because in America, where everybody's like, racism doesn't exist. Yeah, if you say that from a white person's point of view, but if you look at, like, actual people telling their stories, like, it's kind of there. It's baked into the culture. And she kind of gets that little bit of reinforcement when she starts interacting with some of the kids. So the first, like, group of girls she interacts with, I forget all of their names, and they don't matter. The worst one is Karen, and so she knows.
It's always Karen.
Yeah, I don't think that name is an accident. I think that was a purposeful choice by the writer. So in her monologue, Karen's saying racist shit about Bo, and on page 34 and 35. This is me writing. Sorry, I didn't use quotes for all of these. So the Karen starts saying racist shit about Bo. And Yami basically kind of, like, keeps quiet about it at first because she's in a position where she feels unsafe. And she says this thing in her inner monologue where it's easier if I pretend I didn't hear anything. I don't have the energy. I want to say something, but I don't want to get painted as that person. I already stand out as it is. So this happens at the beginning of Yami's journey, where she's trying to figure her shit out. She's trying to gain her own courage and feel comfortable in her skin. And so it's like, it's hard to feel, what I'm gaining from her perspective is that it's hard to already feel comfortable because she already sticks out. And then she's also trying to hide the gay stuff. And she's like is with these people who are, like, openly being racist about Bo. And, like, Yami's in this position where she can either, like, say something and then be like, ugh, like, they'll hate her immediately and cast her as even more of an outsider, or she can just, like, ignore it, basically. And she's like, I'm so, like, I don't want to, like, put the spotlight on me even more too, and, like, that's such a shitty position to, like, even be in. Like, yeah, it's like, wow, it's shitty that Yami's not saying anything, but, like, think about the position that she's in, and she's isolated, doesn't know anybody, and, like, unfortunately is in this environment where, like, the white people outnumber her. So, like, it's a really shitty position that she's in. So it's like, I understand why she, like, thinks that, and it's really fucked up and shitty that, like, she has to think that,
Yeah, and for every Karen, there's a bunch more where that comes from. So again, like, she doesn't have the energy to deal with Karen because she doesn't have the energy to deal with all of them. She doesn't want to keep repeating the same things over and over. And it's
like
just,
her name.
Yeah, so speaking of her name, one of the biggest, I would say, microaggression would be, especially from Americans, because that's my experience, is when people don't even try to say someone's name correctly. So on page 46, Yami is annoyed that Karen calls her Yummy. Like, come on. And, like, of course Karen doesn't even try. So,
No.
like, we pretend, not we, I mean, people who do these microaggressions pretend like names are so hard and they can't figure it out. So they don't even try, and they just say whatever they think they want to call them. They're like, oh, your name is that, I'm gonna call you Bob instead. Go ahead.
You know what I saw somewhere, like, as a call out to all the white people who are like, oh, this is so hard, I could never do this. I forget who it was, but the person says, if you can learn how to say Timothy Chalamet correctly, you can say the name Yami. Basically, it was like the sentiment. Like, you can learn this other person's name too. Like, Chalamet is an insane name to say, and you're fine
Did
with
they
that.
say that in the book? Because I've seen
No,
that.
it's not in the book. Like, it's
Okay.
outside of the book. Yeah, like that sentiment to white people, where it's like,
Because
if you can say this name, I think you can say other names too.
it sounds like something that should be written in the book. But yeah, I definitely seen that. Like, white people have no problem trying to learn other white people's names. And I hate that it's become common for people who immigrate to America to change their names to something American or English. So people will say it right, treat them better. Like, especially on resumes, I know that's like a huge thing. Like, you change your name so you're not immediately discriminated against subconsciously, because a lot of people, they might not even do it consciously. It's something that's ingrained from when you're younger, like how the Pledge of Allegiance and the prayer go together in my head. It's just something you learn, so that's what you're used to.
No, and that's something that's been going on for like a really long time, not just like the name. So have you ever not noticed with authors, some authors will put like first initial, middle initial, last name, like J.K. Rowling, R.F. Kuang, and it's like usually women, because people will take them more seriously if they don't know they're a woman. So that's a way to like hide your gender, or like you can do that too if you have like an ethnic name. You just like use the abbreviation and then like a last name, and then people will take you more seriously. Quote, and they've done studies with this with like resumes where they like had a super ethnic name versus like a bland white person's name, and it's the same resume, and they would send it to the same company, and like I don't know the stats from the study, but like statistically, the white person sounding name would get more callbacks than the other, even though they had the exact same resume except for the name change. So yeah, unfortunately, like there's a lot of power in names, and if like the name quote looks weird, it like it makes you feel, it makes that person seen in a bad way, which is like the theme, unfortunately.
Yeah. It also sounds like what happened in Ellis Island when people were coming over from other countries, and their like last names and first names would just get changed because they either couldn't spell it, couldn't pronounce it, didn't like what it was, how it was written or whatever, and then you basically would erase somebody's entire history, because now 3 generations after Ellis Island, or after their family came through Ellis Island, they now don't know, they can't trace their family back anymore. So they don't know where they came from and stuff. Like, it just erases history and culture and stuff.
Or people would purposely change their names to a white, like an Anglo-Saxon name, because those are the people who would get jobs.
Yeah, yes. Also
Is that why we have so many Smiths and Johnsons?
No, I mean it could be, but a lot of that was just like your last name just, it was a description of like what your job was.
Oh yeah.
So Smith was literally a Smith.
That's
like
right. I remember. Huh. I think my last name got changed at some point as well, but that's not relevant right now. Back to learning someone's name. I just feel like it's basic respect to at least try to learn someone's name, or just try to say it, because it's like the least amount you could do. And yeah, we will most likely butcher the pronunciation because some languages are hard to say. But at least try. And then try even more to work on the pronunciation, especially if this is a person you see a lot. Like,
Right.
especially in that case. But I just want to point, and like, not to say like, oh, I'm amazing, but when we have a guest that I don't know how to say their name, well, first we check with the guest for an interview with how to pronounce their name. But I'm on YouTube or Google trying to learn the pronunciation so I can say it right even to them before we even ask, because it's just it's respect in my brain. I don't know about you guys.
I do my best to attempt, or I ask multiple times, like how to, because I sometimes don't hear things right, or like what I hear doesn't translate through my mouth. So I try, if I don't understand how to pronounce someone's name, I do my best to ask or have them like phonetically say it in some way to at least try.
Yeah, I mean, like, try.
Try.
I mean, we've pointed out multiple times that Theora is just bad at names, and
I'm
that's
just
for
bad
everybody.
at names. I try, like, sometimes some people are like, if I can see it written, that helps me. I'm like, that doesn't help me, actually. Sometimes it makes it worse because, like, I want to read it. I want to read it in Italian usually. And so, like, I'm going to say it, like, incorrectly because I'm reading it in a different language. So, like, that gets me in trouble a lot more than I realize. So, yeah.
Yeah, so there are two different sides. Like, some people who may have trouble, but make sure it's all names and not just foreign names, quote unquote.
Yeah, no, for me it's all names. I fuck up.
Yeah.
I fuck up a lot of words because I'm reading it in the wrong language. I'm pronouncing it in the wrong language.
It's very. Yeah. And Theora's an interesting person. We digress. I'm not saying like you're a terrible person if you can't say a name. I just mean try.
Yeah, I try. It's bad.
Yeah,
it's a horrible attempt. Not trying to be malicious.
No, I understand you, Theora. I can tell right away. I'm like, oh, Theora's not gonna get that.
I'm not gonna get this. Damn, I try. Sometimes I'll listen to even with the YouTube stuff, I will still fuck it up. Like, I just try. I'm just bad at it. I'm sorry.
Anyway, something else that was very telling about the culture differences and them being seen in a bad way. Everybody really sees their ethnicity when the cops show up at the house party.
Yes.
And the quote that I pulled is, and so after, all right, let me back up. So the cops come, and I believe
Yami and Cesar.
Thank you. For some reason, Cesar was just slipping my mind. Cesar comes to Yami and says, the cops are here. We need to go. And so they start running. And then eventually they look back and no one else is running. And it's because they didn't have to. Everyone at this party is white. And afterwards, Yami is thinking, and here they just asked us to turn the music down. No one is getting arrested or deported. No kid is getting their head bashed into the floor. The party is still happening. Their experiences are like, if they do anything wrong, they're threatened. Their whole lives are threatened. Where these kids can get the cops called, they come and give kids breathalyzers, yet the party still goes. And there's no repercussions for underage drinking. The privilege that these kids have to not fear cops and the audacity to continue this party. Because, like, that's the big thing in my mind. Like, they don't even care that the cops came.
Yeah. Very telling.
But then it's even worse because they laugh at Yami and Cesar for running. But if they would have been caught, you know it wouldn't have ended well. No. Like, then the party would have been done and those two would have been getting taken. They would have pretended like Yami was the most drunk there and drank the most, and that's why she was getting arrested. But it was just a very upsetting scene in the makes you angry that these things do happen. And I was even more angry at everybody around them because they should have been questioning, why did these two feel like they needed to run? Or why did we feel like we didn't have to? Because that's also big.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And like, it's like, I like that the author put this here because it's like, oh, you're like lulled into this like false sense of security with, oh, it's a happy party, having fun. And then it's like, here's the reality of this situation for these two particular characters. Like the way things can go completely sideways in the way that like death happens because the cops were too aggressive, or like deportation. Like that's not nothing. Like to get kicked out for because the music was too loud at a party. Like you're getting deported from the country because of it. Like that's insane. Yeah, and so I do. It's an uncomfortable scene, but it's an important scene to show that like how like there's a two justice system here in America. There really is.
And it's not like it was some cautionary tale for them. That's why they're scared. They've seen these things happen.
Exactly. They've experienced this go sideways. Yeah, it's not theoretical,
angry.
it's real. Yeah.
They're dreamers, right? What did they mention that?
I don't
they
know.
Were dreamers or
I don't know. I thought they were.
I thought
Yami and her brother were citizens.
Yeah, I think they were there because they're like freely able to go between countries, and
yeah, I think
dreamers aren't, but
well, dreamer is like it's an immigrant on the it's for kids, I think, where they can gain citizenship. But I think Yami and Cesar are citizens.
Okay. I could have sworn.
I don't remember that specific part. So
yeah, that's fine.
Correct us in the comments if we're wrong, please.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else about that before we move on to the next point?
No, because I'll just get more angry.
Okay. Well, this might make you angry too. So
it does.
It does, I know. So Yami is the oldest sibling. So it's her and her brother Cesar. And you mentioned earlier the way she kind of like does a lot of self-sacrificing to take care of everyone. And she particularly feels really, really responsible for raising Cesar. And she mentioned, especially after her dad was deported, she's like, wow, it's up to me to raise him. And she's constantly in this, and to me, it seems like she was forced to grow up way too fast. Because here she is, a child, she's a minor, working 2 jobs to save money in case her mom kicks her out after coming out. She's like raising her brother a lot because on the other hand, her mom works crazy hard just to keep them in the house because now they went from a dual income house to a single income house. She's an immigrant, probably can't get a great job, like because racism, etc. She didn't go to school, whatever. So like her family is at a disadvantage, is all of that to say. And then here's this kid who's like forced to grow up too quickly to like raise her brother so he can be the golden child, right? He does nothing. Like he has no responsibility with any of that. So he is free mentally and physically to like do whatever he needs to do. And he can be the brainiac and like go be a doctor and like live the American dream, basically, where she's just like, I'm supporting him. That's my dream, basically. So yeah. Forced to grow up too fast.
Yeah. Something that like really struck me in the beginning with Yami was that she was so stressed about getting another job. Well, because she quit the one because of Bianca. But she needed it to be able to pay for school because she needed to be able to take care of Cesar, but their mom could only afford to send Cesar.
Well, no, Cesar had a full ride.
Oh.
Her mom paid half the tuition. Yami had to come up with the other half so that she could be at the school with him.
That's right. I apologize. Thank you. But you could feel all the pressure on her on page 108 when she says, I'm to her dad, I believe. And she says, I'm tired. I'm just so tired. Yami has the weight of her entire family on her shoulders. Like, yeah, the mom is worried. She's doing the best she can as well. Like, you can only do so much with being a one-parent household, and I do feel like the mom could have handled some more things, like actually seeing how much Yami does, but at the same time, she is trying to just, like, keep their family afloat as well.
But it's also, like, from that particular point, it's also a cultural thing that, like, I mean, this comes from my culture also, where like the a lot of things get put on the eldest child no matter what. Like, so like it's expected for Yami to just do all these things. Like, that's just what the eldest child is expected to do. So yeah, her mom doesn't like recognize all the things, or like um not recognize, but like acknowledge to Yami, like, thank you for doing all these things. It's because it's expected for her to do those things. So like, unfortunately, like, she's in a position where like she's expected to take on all these roles, like, regardless of the fact that she's a child trying to figure her own shit out, like, you know. So it's like,
yeah,
kind of shitty.
I just have trouble with that because I don't think any child should have to be responsible for taking care of other people.
Yeah, that's a very modern way of thinking, to be honest, because like kids used to raise kids like back in the day, because everybody was working, and it's like, somebody got to raise these kids. You know.
And it's just like that poor child is burnt out before she even becomes an adult.
Right. But that's what I mean. It becomes even worse for her, because then she has this threat of, I feel unsafe in a possibly homophobic environment. And then when she learns about Cesar, she's like, now I have to get him out of here too. And so like it's even more pressure than like normal is put on her, to the point where she's burning out, like you said, Kaitlynn, as a child, which is just, again, she's like forced to grow up way too fast because of things out of her control, which is really shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Theora, did you ever feel like you grew up too fast?
Not really. I mean, I had the eldest child syndrome, where like a lot of things were expected of me as I was like the eldest child of like two families, like eldest grandchild. So like I had a lot of expectation on me. So yeah, I developed that like perfectionism mentality and things like that. But I don't feel like I grew up too fast. Do you, Kaitlynn?
That is a loaded question.
I know.
I've been like trying to figure out what to say, what to hold back, because I don't want it to be too long. But I will say I had a fairly privileged childhood, in the fact that I didn't see anything going on until 4th grade, at a time where during that year my mom got really sick, to the point where she couldn't work anymore. So my parents separated when I was 3. So we went from 2 incomes. We might have only been 1 income the entire time. So we'll just say I had a 1 income household, then it went down to basically 0 income. So from then on, it was just really difficult it was always just my mom and me. And we became homeless. I think I've talked about that a couple times on the podcast and on my own social media. And I had to learn how to fend for myself, especially when my mom, I don't want to, okay, so trigger warning. In 6th grade, my mom almost passed away because the doctors were just letting her wither away. So I had to learn to do laundry. I learned to cook for myself. I learned how to load and unload moving trucks by myself because my mom just wasn't able to do it. Damn. Yeah. I was so concerned about money that I got a job as soon as I could. Luckily, at that time, things got better so I could quit because I hated it. Never be a bagger. It's terrible. But I learned to take care of myself, and I'm very lucky that it got better. But that the fear of not having money, the fear of not having a place to live will always be ingrained in me. And the money was a huge thing. So like I related to Yami with trying to make money, and I was so scared that I wouldn't even let my mom buy me a belt. And then having to go to school with people who were so privileged, you sit there and you feel so small, like you don't belong. And it's not exactly how Yami's situation, because people didn't know my situation just by looking at me. They know more about Yami, or like assume more about Yami just by looking at her. And there is nothing worse than sitting next to ignorant kids who are your peers, but you are so much older than them mentally, because you know going home that you don't have this like mansion that you're living in and after school sports paid for. You're just trying to help your family keep going, and there's a lot of pressure, and not that it's put on you either. It's just a sense of you feeling like you should be helping your family because you see how hard. So Yami does see how hard her mom works, and I saw my mom trying everything in her power. So I felt like I needed to be not a burden on anybody. I tried to be the best I could. I tried to be the strongest I could be so I could move anything, I could build anything, I could do anything that my mom would need because I didn't want her to need anybody else. And I didn't want her to struggle even more. So long story short, yeah, I feel like I did grow up faster, and I feel like I'm a little stalled in growing up right now because I'm trying to cling on to other things. Sorry for the long answer, but I noticed growing up that I would watch TV and I was really delayed in what I watched. So I watched like little kid television, PBS type stuff, Clifford, and that age group. So that you would say toddler up to 6th grade. And then I would watch Disney Channel. I mean, I was still watching now. Like, it's mindless stuff. But till after high school. And I think that was just a way of clinging to a younger childhood that I didn't necessarily get to experience like everybody else. And I wanted it. So that was my little piece of escaping into TV and why I connect to media right now. Sorry.
No, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that answer. Cole.
What? Did you say something? To me? Did you say something to me, or
do you have an answer for that?
So I honestly grew up very privileged, and I do acknowledge that. I grew up in a extremely white and well-off neighborhood. I went to a fantastic, like, I'm not trying to brag. I'm not trying to, like, I'm just stating, like, I didn't realize how bad some things and some people had it until I got to college. I didn't see it. I was so privileged that I heard of people that did go to the school that they had like assisted lunches, like half-price lunches or whatever, that we did have a food pantry in our town that I volunteered at. I knew it was a thing, but I just didn't see anything. It was just not like what I was around, I guess. My whole family, like my family, when my mom's parents moved here, they were extremely poor. They lived in New York City, in like in a neighborhood that had all of their relatives in it, and my grandparents worked like. My grandfather worked like 3 jobs. The oldest, this is exactly what you were saying, how like the oldest sibling takes care of everybody. So my aunt took care of everybody, worked from as soon as she was able to, like through everything, fed everybody. Like she was the mom because my grandmother didn't work. She grew up privileged in Ecuador and like came over here and was like, I have no skills. I never cooked for myself. I've never worked. I've never done anything. So her oldest daughter took care of everybody. But I think when my family put down roots in New Jersey, like my parents, they wanted to not have that as our upbringing, I'm assuming, because I never saw anything like that. My family had all moved out of New York City and moved into like the suburbs, and everybody was like trying their best to kind of be the American dream. And I, so while I didn't have the, like, I felt it more like internally, like I was like the emotional part wasn't up to par. So like while everything was financially stable, and I grew up quite privileged, my emotional stability and my emotional like ability to interact with other people, and the how my parents interacted with me, it was not great. So I didn't have the financial, like financially everything was fine, but I grew up I had to take care of myself because I didn't feel I could count on my family to be there for me. So it was a little bit different, but I guess I grew up emotionally faster than I should have.
That's fair.
That's valid.
Okay. Yeah. So that little sideline. I will have just one more thing. I think I would have been such a bitch if I continued to be privileged, though. Because, oh my god, did I rule that Catholic school?
Damn, Kaitlynn.
But also, damn, those kids were racist as shit.
They're terrible.
Yeah, I'm lucky that my mom, I came home from kindergarten and said one thing, because I think I heard it from other kids too. She brought in an exchange student. She's like, I'm exposing you to other cultures. Like, this is not happening. And so then I, never had an issue again. And then I always made friends with the bullies and made them nice because they were just trying to fit in. So yeah, I was a very outspoken child, and then I got really, really introverted and shy once everything happened. But moving on.
It's odd. Sorry to this. I'm
You're
going
good.
to add to that a little bit. It's interesting how different pieces, like, because I feel the same way. Like I was very outspoken as a very young kid, and then like emotional stuff happened. Like I had like I stopped believing in God. I figured out that my gender was wrong. Then I figured out like I was gay, and like all these things just kind of like internalized everything as opposed to being like an external thing that was going on. So like we, even though like what we actually went through was different, I feel like it seems like our like how we emotionally dealt with stuff seems kind of similar, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's go back to the book. We've done group therapy. Let's continue. So something about Yami and Cesar's relationship. I do love that Yami had Cesar to relate to with religion. Because in the beginning, you don't know that Yami doesn't know that Cesar is gay. And first of all, that revelation I loved.
He's bisexual.
I'm sorry, bye. Thank you for correcting me.
Okay.
We do not do bi erasure on this podcast. So, Yami really struggles with religion. And I feel like a lot of queer people go through this who grow up in a religious household. And on page 14, she says, in the hallway, I avoid looking at her collection, talking about her mom, her mom's collection of crosses and the gallery of Jesus portraits on the walls. First of all, that's a lot. We do have some here, and I also was just like, okay, that doesn't exist. Because it's very odd. And then on page 97, she says, I grew up Catholic, but I don't exactly agree with everything the faith preaches. As far as the higher power goes, I have no idea what I believe in. That Catholic guilt shit messes me up, though. If there's a hell, I'm definitely going there. And I relate to, like, I don't know what I believe in, because you're, like, fed this stuff when you're younger. You have no choice but to believe what you're being told.
Indoctrination, that's what it is.
Yeah, and during all of this, she does talk about how she is able to talk about to Cesar.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, there's no way she could ever say any of her internal thoughts to her mom, because her mom has this collection of stuff because she is so religious.
Yes.
And I just like how that allows them to relate to each other, and later they bond over queerness. But when you grow up in a place where you're surrounded with something you don't know if you even believe in, I'm really glad that she had someone to escape it from.
Yeah.
It with. Yeah. And now, anyone have something to say about that before we move on to?
No, I agree with that. I relate with that experience as well. And I like your point that at least she had Cesar kind of as an ally in that kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, but basically processing her faith and what it means to her. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to move on to Yami's relationship with her parents, because this is a very interesting arc, I feel. So the story starts with a huge disconnect with Yami and her mom, and Yami's father is her hero. So we see it proven that Yami's mom is always more concerned about Cesar, which causes a rift between them. And I mean, yeah, Cesar's the baby. I am the baby, so I don't know the experience from the adult. I'm sure it was hard on my brother, especially because he's 13 years older than me. He wasn't very much present in my life, so it's just a disconnect for me in this story.
I think there's another piece to it, though, with Yami. It's not just that Caesar's the baby. I think the other piece is that the reason why she idolizes her father so much is I think she's holding on to that person he was in the past. And so, like, to her, she remembers her father when she was young. And when you're young, you don't see your parents as people. You see them as heroes, like people who can do no wrong, people who everything they say is right. So, like, that is what she's clinging to for her dad. Whereas, like, her mother, now that she's older and becoming an adult, she can see her mother more as a human being and because of that, sees her faults. And so she's like, oh, mom's so flawed and blah, blah, blah. And she works so hard. She doesn't take her culture seriously, but dad always did when I was a child. And she doesn't know her dad anymore. They don't really talk about real things. It's just like that superficial, like, how are you doing? Tell me about your day. Like, she doesn't know her father anymore. So I think that's the other part of why she sees her mother so negatively. It's like she doesn't actually know her father. And so she's clinging to the past with him. Whereas her mother, like, she hasn't fully reconciled the fact that her mother's a human being with flaws quite yet. And I think she kind of resents her a little bit because, like, that happens, like, as you age and you're trying to understand that your parents are just people. People are flawed. Like, it's like a shattering of the illusion kind of thing that she's going through. Yeah.
You're completely right. Her father's just frozen in time for her.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a big problem. And I don't think she ever really recognizes that at all because she's never really going to know her father.
No, unfortunately.
Which is terrible.
Unfortunately and fortunately.
Right,
because
for her situation, yeah.
So, Yami's mom was fairly expressive with her views on gay people, even it was only subtle at times, or not so subtle. So, one thing that, like, really caught my attention is when her mom shields her eyes when two women start kissing on TV. But Yami points out that she is fine with... Hold on, sorry. I keep hitting the adjustable desk, and it keeps going up and down. But Yami points out that her mom is fine with her watching someone get murdered. And I love the comparison because it shows that people are more okay with murder than they are with people gaying it up all over the place.
This is such an American thing, though. It's ridiculous. Like, because in media, because of the way media is, like, rated, like if there's something explicitly queer that happens in it, it automatically gets bumped up to a mature audience. But like violence can be at a lower maturity. So like it's okay with children watch murder and like violence, because violence is like everything. That's fine. But if
Guns
it's queer,
are rated G.
if it's queer, nope, adults only. It's like, what? It's actually insane when you think about it.
I mean, it starts with like Bambi. Literally, it's not even humans, but that's murder. Like the parents die in the first like however many
Every
seconds.
Disney movie.
Every
the
Disney
parents-
movie.
Yeah. But it's like everything starts with death, and death is like all over the place, and that's rated G.
But like death is a part of life. But when you're explicitly talking about like watching a murder happen on, like you're watching the violence. Bambi was cutaways.
For example, in Home Alone, you get that the Lost, and I think it's Home Alone 2. Yeah, the New York one. You see the guy shooting a gun in the one scene, like when he's trying to pretend like his dad is there and is, because like he gets a hotel room and pretending like his dad is there and he's the one who paid for it, and there's like the hotel staff outside the door, so he has this movie on and he's like, I'm gonna give you the count of 3 until I blow your brains out. 1, 2, and then the hotel person leaves because they don't want to get their brains shoot out, but that's fine, that's a kid's movie.
Right.
But
it's just a very American thing.
Yeah. But back to Yami. So Yami revamped her mom's Etsy shop, and she was so proud of what she did, and I'm proud of her too.
Mm-hmm.
But it was crushed when her mom told her to take it down. And I mean, I see both sides, because Yami's mom, like, she thinks that because she posted it as well, she thinks that they're trying to ask people for help, and that's not.
Oh, that's not how I read it. That's
All
an
right.
interesting read. I also read it as mom being like, shit, that's going to be more work for me. And I'm already like, this woman, when does she take a break?
Yeah,
Like
she's
working 2 jobs by herself. And she's like, she had her business at a state that was manageable for just her to do. So she's like, fuck, how am I going to keep up with all these orders? Like, I can't believe you did that. Like, so I think she was freaking out because like,
yeah, okay,
yeah,
because I think they had a bunch of orders at the time.
Exactly. She's like, oh my God, I don't have time to do this. And now like people are going to think bad of my business. And like, yeah, I think that's really,
that is true as well.
I think Yami saw it that way. But I do like that, like the way the store gets to thrive is by the 2 of them working together, because like her mom needed help and like she has no support system really. Like the father, her husband's gone. Like she has no support system. So like I like that Yami kind of steps in and fills that role for her mother, because her mom needs help. Like the story you were telling, Kaitlynn. Like, and there's nobody there to help her mom. You know?
Yeah. But because her mom told her to take it down, Yami turns to her father, and I thought it was a really cute exchange that she woke up to a text from her mom telling her to leave the store up, and one from her father telling her that he talked to her, and it has like a winky face at the end. And it's just, in the beginning, I was so hopeful with that whole relationship because I love seeing the father and her like connect. And I guess it is superficial because I didn't even think about how he is frozen in time for her. But from there, unfortunately, it starts to go downhill with the father. And like I said, I was hopeful for this relationship, especially when the father told Yami that she's allowed to be honest with him. I thought that he knew already. I thought and would understand her. Like, I thought he figured out that she's queer, or like something is bothering her and she needed to tell him.
Well, from her perspective also, he seemed so much more open to differences, like to anything, like just seemed more open as a person versus the mom, who in her portrayal is so like rigid and very Christian and very Catholic rather, and very like that's not good, and if it's not good, it's not okay kind of thing. Whereas the dad was, in her perception, was the opposite of that.
Yeah, and I think part of that had to do with the fact that like the dad like stood up for human rights for like immigrants and things like that. And so she's like, oh, he's receptive to like radical change and things like that. But it's like, no, he's like, he had a vested interest in that for himself. Yeah, it doesn't mean he's necessarily open-minded about your particular situation that doesn't align with him. And I think like the mom is the more conservative figure out of safety for herself. And also like, I think that's a way for her to cling to her roots is by being very Catholic, because like, unfortunately that is a very colonizing imperialist religion that was imposed on many indigenous people, including indigenous Mexicans. So, but like to the mom who grew up probably Catholic in Mexico, like that's a way to cling to her culture. It's just not the same cultural experience that Yami got with her dad, who, you know. So
that whole story, the whole arc between the two parents, when Yami's mom finds out that both her kids are queer,
this was
she ends up like, while Yami's at school, and I think Cesar was coming home from the hospital later that day, she decorates all the house in rainbow stuff.
Flag. It was very cute.
Gets a cake, and it's just adorable. They're like, "What is going on?" She's like, "It's gay," or something like that.
Yeah, and that was really sweet.
So happy because it doesn't matter even what she believed in. She's like, I believe in my kids, and I will accept you for who you are, and I will get there. I will meet you where you are instead of you having to hide yourself. And I know she came on really strong with them, but it's so cute, and it's really supportive of her. And it means that she had to go look up the bi flag colors and do research on this to know what those colors were. And it's so special, and something I know that they'll remember for their entire life.
Oh yeah, for sure. I wonder if she texted Jamal too to be like, what is the bi flag? Just because she loved him.
Oh my gosh, yes, that relationship was also very cute.
Very cute.
Love that. She loves Jamal. Yeah. You could be like, all right, Jamal, I need help. Let me educate me here. That would have been a really
I'm pretty sure that was the Google she contacted
him. But what really not surprised me, because I didn't really know what to expect, is when she finds out that her husband was treating Yami horribly and not talking to her, and that she immediately was just like, you're out of our lives. Like, even though she loved this man, they're also a rift because he was frozen in time for her as well, because like they only got to talk on the phone.
That's what I'm saying. What was that relationship actually?
Yeah.
What was the end game there? Like,
I wonder what even happened when they went back and visited him, because like there is going to be a disconnect. Like, who knows if there is even a connection?
Correct. Yeah, I always wonder about that with the parents, because we don't really get their point of views. You're just seeing it from Yami, who's a kid. It
would be interesting to have like an epilogue from maybe the mom's point of view.
Yeah, I would
maybe
love that.
The dad's point of view, because I just want to see what the hell is in that brain.
Right. And it's like, this is why I don't like YA, because like you only see it from the child's point of view, and it's like you lose the complexity of what's actually happening in this scenario. And so when we get to the end, though, with the mom doing the coming out thing that you're talking about, the little pride celebration, like, it's like Yami's like, oh, wow, my mother loves me. And it's like, your mother's loved you the whole fucking time. Like, the reason your mom is so tired and like burnt out is because she's literally sacrificing her life for the two of you. Like, she loves you so much, she is sacrificing her like quote American dream so that you can have it, right? And like, you're sitting here idolizing your father, who's not in it. He's not supporting you. He doesn't have to like, his money doesn't go towards you. Like, he's not actually supporting any of you. So he gets to be like this good fun guy who just like pops in occasionally. and like gets to be the hero, but it's like your mother is the one who's like literally with you all the time. She's the one making the sacrifice. She's the one keeping a roof over your head. Like, and that is lost completely when you look at it from a child's point of view only. And like, that's really why I don't like
I also think that's a common
it's very common
thing in families.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. It's very realistic because, like, now thinking about my family, like, they did a lot to keep us, like me and my sister, like a lot. I mean, they gave us everything, pretty much everything we wanted. You know, like we had enough, and yet still going through everything. Like, you just don't see it until you're an adult, until you can reflect on, like, oh, okay, like, yeah, like they had their own things that they were dealing with and going through and trying to still be a parent, even though whatever was happening in their adult lives as well.
Yeah, until you're working and you're like, oh, they needed time for themselves as well. They can't just be taking care of us.
Yeah.
Yes, because like the point of view with children, it's just so narrow. And personally, I find that boring. So like,
I mean,
would
that's
love to have
fair
the mother's
with
point of view.
where you are in life. Like, you're
Right,
set,
exactly. That is where you are in life. Like, but like where I'm at, I'm like, well, what was going on with other people? Because like there's more to the story and I'm only seeing like this tiny piece of it.
I think for me, I still relate to these books in the fact that I didn't have like the typical high school experience because I was so worried about other things, and the social aspect I'm very delayed in, I personally feel. So I'm trying to learn from everybody else, like learning themselves in high school, because I never really did that.
See, and I feel the exact same way. Like, I love, like, this book felt so, like, I went along, like, I remember high school in very similar points to what was talked about in this book. Like, that's, and it was like a very, it helped, like, I don't know about come to terms, but it helped, like,
Heal.
yeah, I guess heal in a way, not fully, of course, because it's just a book, but like it helped put in.
Hey, books are powerful.
They are, yeah, they are powerful, but like, but it felt so relatable to me and like growing up and everything. So it was nice having it in book form as opposed to just in my brain as memories.
Yeah. Anything else before I just go over a couple more things I liked, apparently?
Do it.
I put my likes at the end.
I have some to add in this like section. So if you want to go first,
Would you?
can.
You can go.
Oh,
You go
okay.
first.
I just want to add, I loved the titles of this book, like the titles of the chapters. I loved the like twisting of like religious themed titles, like "Thou shall not trust a two-faced bitch." Like, I don't know. It just felt like trying to I don't know what the word is, like almost twist the.
It's a play on words, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah. Phrase. Yeah, I like the way the author. So the author is very witty. Like, again, like I'm not a huge fan of YA, but I really love the way this book was written. The author is clearly a very prolific writer. I like the way the writer also used the titles to show Yami's headspace, because if you notice, it pivots at some point when she gets to basically like her big epiphany, and it stops going away from like the Catholic school, the Catholic kind of titles, to more like Mexican heritage kind of I forget. I don't have the book in front of me. I haven't read it in a while, but like it pivots as the character pivots. So I really like the way the author, not only they're funny, but like there's a purpose behind why the author did that. And I find that depth interesting in the story.
So, a few things I liked. I should have put this one in another section, but I don't know why I didn't. Not this one, but the next one. So the first one that I want to talk about is Cesar's response to blatant racism, and I just love that he says the caucasity.
Yeah. Again, this book is so witty. Like, I do love it.
It was very. I found myself laughing actually out loud multiple times. It was great. Okay, so the next one I did I'll read it fast so we don't spend too much time. I thought that it was really relatable that Yami kept comparing where she lived to other people she went to school with because she was so ashamed of where she lived. She didn't want Bo to know where she lived because she lived in such a nice house. And it's rough when you go to school with people who have everything and they can't understand what you have. I love that Yami is comfortable with her outward appearance and she's able to admit that she looks cute as hell and loves her style. And I think that confidence also helped her accept who she is on the inside. And something I wish I had, just to be totally comfortable with what you look like on the outside. I just find it very admirable.
Yeah, and I also find it very interesting that like she outwardly is comfortable with who she is, but it's the inner self. That's why that's why I really love the imagery of the mirror, because the mirror is your inner self. That's really what she's ashamed of and struggling with. But outwardly she's like very comfortable with her heritage, with the way she looks and everything you just said. So it's a very interesting dichotomy for a teenager specifically, where like a lot of teenagers are just like they're grossed up by the way they look also. So I like that it made her more interesting as a character to me. So I did enjoy that. Not on here because I didn't see this section when I wrote my notes, but I will add Cesar and Jamal. I love them. I
They're
wish we
very
had the
cute.
story just about them because they were adorable and cute, and I just love Jamal. Oh my god, he wasn't in it enough.
I would love to see in like 20 years a family Christmas where maybe Bo and Yami go home together. Maybe they're together. Who knows? Or maybe they're just friends and they have other people. But Jamal and Cesar are definitely together, and then they all go to their house and celebrate Christmas Eve. I think they celebrate. Whatever.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Track.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't put the mental health stuff in here, Kaitlynn.
I mean, I think I was going to talk about that earlier, or I didn't get to that part in the notes. But just, yeah, in general, I do love the mental health. First of all, they told him that they gave him a set amount of time, that it would be 3 days, and then he could go home. What the hell? If I was given that option.
That's because he was on suicide watch, I think, in the hospital. Like,
it's just a 72-hour hold.
Right. It's like that's a legal thing. It's the hospital has to hold you legally for 72 hours. If the doctor invokes, they are a suicide risk. Yeah, there's like a law that they can use to hold you for it's 72 hours. That's it. Then they can't legally hold you after that.
You can be admitted after that, but you could also elect to go home after.
Exactly. Then they cannot legally hold you anymore. You could leave against medical advice and things like that. It's more complicated too because he's a minor, so mom could force him to stay, but like the hospital legally can hold you for 72 hours if you are a risk at harm yourself.
So my experience was that when I went into the hospital, okay, so first of all, you want to put yourself in there. If you get forced in there, you definitely cannot choose to leave. Like you're under the will of these people. And so many of us were trying to get out, and basically you would say, I want a 72. And so that was like you have 72 hours and they release you. But your doctor has to sign off on that. And if they determine that you're not okay to leave, you are stuck there even longer. So it was I felt like I was in prison, a decent prison, but like that whole thing just felt very prison-like to me. Not that I know what prison is. I'm sure prison's so much worse, but like doors would lock and key cards were needed. It was just a very weird environment. But I just found that interesting, that I always love it when they put the mental hospital in books and show that it's okay if you need to go there, because it's okay to get the help that you need.
Yeah, and I like that they also show with Cesar's journey, which is realistic, especially in a YA book, that like just because you go to the hospital and get treated for something mentally, it doesn't mean that you're fixed magically. Like, it's a huge process, like that he's going to have good days and bad days. Like, it's not, and I like that they do that in Heartstopper too, where they're showing like, it's not like an infection where like you treat the infection's gone. It's like, this is something that can take a lifetime to work through.
But a lot of people who aren't experiencing expect you to just be magically fixed.
Correct.
And
right.
also you do as well. Like, every time I go into
Right.
like an intensive therapy or even the hospital, I came home, I was like, I still feel like shit. Like, why do I still, so trigger warning for SI? Yeah, suicidal ideation.
Yeah. Okay. I was like,
yeah, I was like, I can never remember all the letters. I was like, why do I still not want to be here? Why do I still feel like I can't continue? And eventually it did dissipate to, I mean, some days it comes back. Sometimes there's still situations where I'm like, oh, I can't handle this. But it's definitely when you leave those places, you're just trying to, at least for myself, I was trying to get out just to get out and feel like I was okay, but I wasn't. And then you have people treating you differently afterwards, not wanting to leave you alone.
Yep, Cesar.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
it's a lot. I will, but I just really like that the books tackle that, because it's not something you talk about. I mean, nowadays it's a lot better, and that's why in the podcast I'm always like very open with every experience I have, because I just want people to feel seen, and that's what the media is for us and why we're here.
Yeah, and so the other thing I really like about Cesar's journey, I agree with person who recommended this to us.
Charlie,
who came in our Discord and talked about it and said that Cesar was like the most interesting character and found Cesar very, very fascinating. And I totally agree with that, because a lot of what happens with Cesar we don't see, because we have a child giving us their perspective, and to a child the world is myopic, and Yami only sees Yami's world. So like there's glimpses of Cesar, but Yami doesn't really see the full picture of Cesar, because Yami's very focused on Yami, which is a very child thing to do. But what's also interesting, so like, you know, was it Exile? I gave so many signs, but Yami missed all the signs. I had to do at least one reference.
Oh, you remind me of something.
Yes. So, like, from our narrator's point of view, the fact that Yami missed all of Cesar's signs that he was not okay is not, it's kind of expected from who our narrator was. What's also interesting is that the mother didn't see any of it. And I think that's because she's so busy trying to, like, make money for them and, like, run the household and keep these, you know, kids in a fancy school, that she didn't have time to see it. So it's kind of like the reality of being in that situation where mom is working herself to death, basically, and isn't around, and her daughter resents her for not really being around enough. But like, because the mom is doing her best in this shitty situation, she is missing what's actually going on with her kids. Like, and it could be something really horrible that she's missing, but it's like, you can't, it's not her fault. It's like their situation just is like unfortunate, kind of like in that home environment where she doesn't see it either. So like poor Cesar was basically like this unhappy ghost, like in the house, where like he was more isolated than anybody else, and like nobody knew it, because he just presents as the golden boy, you know?
And unfortunately, it takes such an extreme scenario for people to wake up. And that is what happens for people. Like, again, no one knew anything was wrong with me, because you will always, I think there was a Robin Williams, I believe that's his name, a quote like, happy people are the saddest on the saddest people try to make other people laugh, or something like that. Like, they're like, that's why comedians, I always like, are you okay with like some jokes, I'm like, but how are you really feeling? I'm like, let's do therapy. So where did that joke come from? No, so just But it's rough. Like, you are just trying to get through. Like, you can't worry about when you are worrying. Sorry. So for Yami's mom's point of view, she is worried about them and just trying to give them the basics that they need. So, but at the end, she still needs to take care of herself as well, and it's hard to see everything that's going on because it's just too much for one person.
Yeah. So my thought through reading this whole book was like, how is her mother actually? Because like there's no way her marriage is like still strong. Like there's no way.
Yeah.
Like like I think I don't remember which parent said it, but they're like, oh, that was the love of my life and blah blah. But it's like, how is it now? Because like you guys barely talk, you can't see each other. Like mom is now the head of the household she didn't expect to be, and like is living this life she didn't expect to have, and it's like clearly very taxing on her. And it's like, really, how is their mom? Because like I worry about that woman.
And the amount of times she's just crying because her husband isn't there and she's doing all this by herself. And
that's terrifying.
Yeah.
2 kids by yourself in a foreign country. Like, where's her book?
Yeah, that's the sequel.
That's the book I want. I want to know what the mom's story was like.
Make it an actual for the older generation. Not
For real.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Anyway, any other points you guys like before we kind of wrap this up?
Cole?
Did any of you have a beau, like, when you were in school? Like, somebody who you're just like, wow, they actually either stand up for themselves, stand up for what they believe in, they, like, you know, just, like, emulate beau in your own life?
Looking back, there was a girl in my, I think it was a forensic science class, and she always talked about her girlfriend. And at the time, I knew I was questioning myself, but I was like refusing to actually think about it. And I just thought it was really cool that she was so open about having a girlfriend. She was so happy with having a girlfriend, and she was just always herself. She liked cosplay, so she would wear some stuff to school. She would always share with what she's working on. She didn't care what anyone thought. At least that's what it seemed like, and I do love that. And I think about her every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was like a queer girl who was out, and I was just like, well, if you can do it, I can do it. And she like, I played lacrosse, and she played lacrosse for like a different school, and I was like, damn, she can do it, I can do it. And then yeah, that's what motivated me.
That sounds like a good YA book.
My life would not make a good YA book.
No, I just mean that whole concept of a closeted lacrosse player and then a rival out.
I wish they got together, but they did not. That is not how that story went. Anyway, it's okay. Shit happens.
I guess my last thing would just be the section that we've been adding to recent episodes randomly. What Taylor Swift songs do I relate to this week?
Oh man, for this book? Damn.
Would you like a moment to think, or do you want me to go?
The only thing that's popping into my head is "You Belong with Me." That's like Yami to Bo. And vice versa.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so I have a journey of songs for Yami and Bianca, actually.
Ooh, that's really good. Because
Okay.
maybe now we got bad blood.
Actually, that's not one of the. I could have. So I'm just thinking like Yami's like internal emotions.
Ooh, okay.
So before she even says anything, I was thinking the one that turns into Betty, with Bianca suddenly changing the way that
you're in your Betty era right now.
I love Betty. And then to My Tears Ricochet.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then Yami, I would say in general, is Epiphany, in the fact that she does everything for everyone else and dreams about her future. So basically, this book is folklore.
Yeah, I was just gonna say these are all folklore songs.
I was going down the list looking at lyrics, and
So what you're saying is that Anne could have wrote this book.
that was a
Mini
spoiler for our May book club that will release in June.
Yes. Mini spoiler for Dear Wendy.
I'm so
Great
excited
book.
for that book.
It's so good. Anyway. Okay, thank you, Kaitlynn. I agree. This was very folklore-y. Okay, so let's get back to Lesbian Jesus. Okay, so now that we've concluded our discussion on this, we will wrap this up with our Lesbian Jesus hydration scale. This is our scoring system that was developed by Gay Science right here at Big Gay Energy, which makes it a super accurate method for determining how valuable a piece of queer media is to the queer media library. Why are we hydrating? Because queer media, like water, is essential for life. So, how much would you hydrate for Lesbian Jesus for the Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School?
Was Moses the one to part the sea?
I think so.
Cool.
Correct.
I'm going to name Moses Mabel for this purpose. Because we have Lesbian Jesus, so we're naming Moses Mabel. Okay. So 10 Mabel's parted seas.
What's Moses Mabel?
Moses parting the... It's the amount of water Moses had to hold back when he was parting the Red Sea.
Mabel?
No, I was just changing Moses's name.
It was just
don't worry about it. Moses, 10 Moses's.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Cool.
It did not land.
I didn't know what Mabel meant. I got the reference, but I didn't know what Mabel meant. What was Mabel? Oh, I don't have anything clever.
That's okay. What number would you give it?
I would give it... Oh, goodness. I really like this. I'm gonna give it a like solid 10 of like I related way too strongly to this book. It felt like my high school experience, and which I'm not sure if that's good, but that's where we're at. So
it's novel worthy, if anything.
This was
your experience.
I don't know what my experience was, but this book was very, very good. I really enjoyed it. I was very excited about it.
Good. And I will give it whatever amount of water it takes for Jamal and Cesar to be endgame. Because I want them to be endgame.
You should split. It needs to be a split book between the mom's point of view and then what's happening with Cesar and Jamal.
Nah, we can just have 2 more books.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 more books. That sounds good.
Fine.
I enjoyed this author. But I appreciate the effort. All right, cool. So that concludes our book club. What's next?
Oh, Solitaire.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So the book we're currently reading now and we'll be doing our next book club on is Solitaire by Alice Osman. Yeah, I do it wrong every. You know what's really funny? Because the first time we said it in Heartstopper, I think I said Osman, and you're like, no, it's Osman. So it's stuck in my head that it's Osman.
I'm so sorry. I probably did that to you. It's so sorry.
Alice Osman, the queen of just writing queer stuff, and I love it. So basically what Solitaire is it's her first novel. She wrote at like 14 because she's a genius. And it's basically the first book in the Heartstopper universe, even though it wasn't intended to be. So it follows Tori Spring, who's Charlie's older sister. And it like takes place during book 4 of Heartstopper. It's really weird and meta. And like basically like her brother is like featured in it with Nick. And that sparked her to be like, that'd be interesting to write about them. And that sparked Heartstopper. So we're reading that book because Tori is a queen and deserves her own book club episode. So check that book out. It's super. I've read it. It's really great, and I'm excited for Kaitlynn to read it because I really think you're gonna like it.
Oh, if Theora tells me I'm gonna like something, most likely I'll like it. Theora knows me.
It's a book about Tori. How do you not love that? Anyway, so
the Diet Lemonade origin story.
Yes, no, literally, I love Tori. Anyway, so that will be our next book club. So thank you for joining. If you have any, like we said at the beginning, if you have any books you would like us to check out and or cover, please leave a comment, reach out to us, let us know. And thanks again, Charlie.
Yes, Charlie S.
I'm so sorry. There was the Heartstopper thing, and then your name happens to be Charlie too. Thank you again for suggesting this book. It was really great. We had a lot of fun reading it. And until next time, hydrate for lesbian Jesus.
And gayed up all over the place. Bye.
And with that, we've been Big Gay Energy. If you like this episode, check out all our other episodes right here on YouTube.
Please like, leave a comment below, and subscribe for more amazing super gay content.